All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a one-on-one session with me and my good friend Zatril here. We are going to be running a small one-on-one session, as I said before, on his character in the very large campaign which I'm running called the Symphony of War. And we're going to title this one called The Land, since he is currently traveling with a very prominent member of the campaign, a very powerful NPC. And he just arrived in this land, and he's kind of getting his bearings together. And to kind of give these people names, is right now he's traveling to the land of Lotus, which once used to be the nation of Cadria, if I'm saying that right, and Teldor, if I'm saying that right as well.
I always pronounced it Quadria.
Yeah, I always pronounce it Cadria too, but then I was like, is it? Because I think I saw the actual way you say it. I was like, right. Anyways, but yeah, Cadria, in the easternmost arm of the northern continent of the Inner Sea Empire. To give a little backstory, right now in my campaign, these two nations were once warring. Well, we're getting pretty close to warring, and have now been united under one banner by some mysterious force in the last 5 years. My friend, actually, I'll let Zatril give a little background story on his character if he wishes.
All right. My character is Kale Varellis. He started this campaign as a Knight of Ozum, sent from Lastwall to check on a town where people suddenly went missing. He got wound up in events through there and found that there's an evil force in the world that is far greater than the orcs that the Knights of Ozum deal with, and decided that he would devote himself to stopping said evil force. So he meets the Pope and
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, I guess. Meets the Pope. Doesn't know she's the Pope, but anyways, tells him to go to Lotus to find his answers. And so the whole party follows suit.
Mm-hmm. Zatro here is a part of a bigger group of like I said, the main campaign of what is it, 5 others? Yeah. 5 other individuals who are trying their hardest in a very hard campaign to not buckle underneath all the.
I guess 4 others. There's 5 of us total.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 4 others. I feel like it's 5, but yeah.
Let's see. Kale, Craven, Corgon, Havel, and Margos. 5.
Okay. Then yeah. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get him situated to the events which are currently happening in the main campaign. And this is a little timeout. Hopefully you guys will get a good semblance of how we run things. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So you leave Laodicea, which is the capital of Lotus, on a very bright afternoon, as per usual. This is the eastern side. You don't know exactly where you're heading, obviously, but Raul Maximov has been telling, well, kind of just sort of told you that you're going to be making a lot of stops at nearby towns here and there, just to kind of check up on things. But you feel as though the way he said that, there's a hidden agenda in his voice, which you kind of sense that you should probably, pry in the way he said it. But, this man is clearly a very, prominent member of Laodicea itself, a war marshal. And maybe you shouldn't, pry information from such a person in high esteem. But you travel for about 2.5 days. You notice as well that the horse you're riding, though is carrying an obscene amount of gear, packing equipment and dry goods and food and canteens and sleeping tools. I don't know why I'm saying that.
Bedrolls.
Yeah, bedrolls and things of that nature. It doesn't seem to have any problems traversing the hard stone, which then you make camp for about one night, and Lord Raoul, I mean Lord Maximov, has kind of been quiet, and you notice that he does very strict. Oh no, he follows. Sorry, I'm trying to lose my words here.
Mm-hmm.
He does rituals. He has his prayers, and he does very almost Middle Eastern style prayer where he bends low and he faces the sun and that kind of style of praying. Well, he's on his knees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems to he keeps it going for some like long periods of time. On his back though, you've seen as he it's the first time you bent low, and you think you saw it the first time you went into his sleeping quarters in Laodicea. You see a large a large tattoo of sorts, but instead of it being like having color, it looks more like a marking, like a brand, like a large brand. Roll me a knowledge religion.
I should get over to the D20 thing and do that, shouldn't I?
You probably should, but I don't have it open.
Okay. Well,
and
let me roll on my
phone
then.
Technical difficulties here.
I didn't know I'd actually be rolling.
Oh.
Where's that? Here we go. Roll you a what?
Knowledge religion.
Okay. I rolled a 12, add my knowledge religion, so that is a total of 17.
Okay. With the brand the grand information you've kind of garnered at your time in the likes of Ozan and these kind of matters, religious matters, even though you yourself follow a sect of Eridan, but Amade, but you're a devout Herodian.
Mm-hmm.
You have never seen this branding in your life, ever. It looks to be of a almost ominous looking eye that stares back at you. If you can see where the imprints in his skin is, and it seems to be following down like a long shaft, like it. The eyes. What the hell's the name of those damn stones in Legend of Zelda? I can't think of it.
You're talking about the fuck. The gossip stones.
Yeah, the gossip stones. You remember how the eyes kind of formed that way? Yeah, it looks with
the teardrop.
Yeah, except the teardrop, it looks like a long, just like a bladed, like a very weird blade going down, like not through the eye. It all seems like different parts, and there seems to be some space in between all the different parts. But yeah, it runs down his spine all the way down, down to his like lower. But yeah, you notice this, and this is complete news to you. He continues his ritual until about 8 p.m. Starts a fire, and with very minute. What the hell? God, I'm losing all my words today. Very easily, and he sits down, and you guys end up setting camp by a very small region of arid, rocky desert. There seems to be like grass around still, but instead of being like, it's like the Arizona style desert rather than being like it's the fucking sand dunes and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's still cacti here and there. And as you sit there, he makes his bedroll. You notice that there's nothing really fancy about the tools he has for for a person with such stature. There's nothing that really screams out besides that thing that he does that you've seen twice now. Nothing else. He seems like a man in his early 30s. Long black hair. His beard is kept clean, but he keeps his hair tied up, but still lets some fall down so it kind of frames his face. In the style of Mitsurugi. But yeah, he kind of has like that thick beardish, well kept beard. Talk about it. And he sits down, in his adventuring clothes, leaving some chest open, because it's hot. And he sits back on a log, which has been like almost like this is like a rest stop, kind of like this is way too much of a perfect setting, for it to just be like a random occurrence. This log is here to the right. There's a fire, and he slides some dirt close enough to the fire, but not on top of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it flickers through the night. It's pretty high. It's about a 2 feet fire. Set some stones here and there, but other than that, he just kind of kicks back, takes out a canteen, and not a canteen, a cup, and it's empty. He hands it to you, and he says, "My friend, how do you find the land so far?" Which, by the way, is a lot of desert. Or should I say, how do you find Odysseus so far?
I did not expect the land to be as barren out here, so close to the capital.
It's quite. Let's just say we've had a bit of a run-in with many other nations very close to the capital. So it's caused a bit of a drought in this region. And it kind of leaves that ominously hanging in the air, like, you gonna explain that?
Seems that all that I've heard of this nation is how it interacts with others and how other nations seem to be at odds with it.
Sorry. Mm-hmm. Hey, that would be the case. He kind of smiles and he leans back, sliding his back against putting the small of his back on the log, and he kind of props his hands up on the side. Oh, and as you notice, this thing is empty. Just roll me a. Never mind. We're just gonna leave it alone for a minute. Okay. Yeah, he props up and he picks up his mug and takes a good drink from it. And he says, "Well, good men from the Knights of Ozen, this land used to once be a beautiful sight for both nations. Do you know the history of Cadria before it became Laodicea?"
I'm not very familiar with any country in this area, other than my homeland of
Andoran?
Andoran, yeah. Sorry, I kept thinking. Yeah. Andoran.
Let's see. He says, "Well, most of these nations, specifically Cadria, was always a barren wasteland, to say the least. But it took a couple of very zealous horse-loving individuals to start hosting races here. Little by little, they started making markets, and it eventually grew to be something of magnificent beauty. And to hold that beauty in check, Kitapesh, the Kitapetian Empire, started funneling money to say, and put the Saratraps. I can't even pronounce exactly how to say that. satraps, I think that's what you say, put Lord Xerxes in power, and the rest is history. But unfortunately, as Katapesh is, 200 years of war followed in the founding of it. Katapesh and Teldor went to war over simple went over, sorry, they went into a war of attrition, sorry, which lasted a very long time. It was during the time when Teldor had sent their mighty army to Chelix. Unfortunately, after many, many countless bloodshed battles, or should I say, fortunately, this once beautiful desert here, this once beautiful land was not a desert. It was beautiful and verdant, like it is in the north of this. But now it's nothing but a stomped battleground of what once was. Kind of size. And unfortunately, my family holds lineage in this place. You see, we were born Cadrian, but we were raised Teldorian. So there's a bit of love and hate on both sides. But either way, I've been here since before the onset of Lodis and the Emperor himself. Though I cannot say exactly what the Emperor intends to do with such a vast army and land. I pray that the man himself, and he kind of like looks to the side, kind of like for like a bit of a second, you kind of glance of his like unknowing self, like he's kind of asking himself this more than saying it to you.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I hope that the man, with all his infinite wisdom and power, makes the right decision and doesn't let this place become Chelix. For this land has seen enough bloodshed as it is.
Kel takes a look inside that cup that he's holding, and he says back, despite not knowing the answers, you seem to know a lot more about the king and his wishes than I do. Any normal person would suggest that perhaps he took over the land just so that he could have a large country to rule. You seem to suggest that he has greater aspirations.
Well, any tyrant can run into a country and take over, but to give back to the people, it is very different to say. As you see, Teldor, as I grew up and my father grew up, and his father before him, was a land of decadence until it started falling into decline when tyrants started taking in more than they deserved. And he kind of looks about, sadly, leaving a large portion of the populace to fend and for themselves and live in poverty-stricken lands, very, very minute, while the wealthy hoarded and dug deep into the shining crusades many coffers. Living off of past glories is what Teldor once was. But this man came in, opened up all of the coffers. Not one single one remained. Declared himself ruler of both lands, and then gave it all away. Simply, nah, it begs the question that what is he doing? Is he just trying to make a name for himself, or is it something more that he wishes to achieve?
You did mention that he's amassed a large army.
The armies. Well, it was up to my constituents, that of Lord Xanthiel Galvos, Lord Kairos Sanguinol, and I, and a conglomerate of others, to once both nations united under one single banner, that this army would be too much of too much responsibility for one man to handle. And so despite many arguments, we decided to divide the army into different aspects. As you see, the land is big, it's huge and marvelous, but to simply move one army here and there like a swarm of locusts would be futile. And so we made the guards, as we like to call them.
The white guard and the black guard and the gray guard.
Indeed. We could not exactly call them anything else, for many champion the names of older armies, Shining Crusade, but no one really wanted to be under the banner of some older name. So instead, we settled on naming it after colors. Simple. Even a child could understand exactly what the meanings of each of our respective armies, to say the least, can do.
Kale thinks about that statement for a moment, unsure of what he means by that. And
Do you have an expression in your face or anything?
he's got like not real. It's just kind of he's looking into the cup, trying to think, like thinking to himself. He takes his right hand and he puts his middle finger around the rim of the cup and rubs around it and fills it with water.
Yeah. You do that, he kind of stands up and goes to one of the horses, which is like these horses are, well, his majestic horse that I don't want to spoil on this, disappeared. So instead, he goes to where your horse is laying very, very still with all the garments, with all the items and that are still on it. Besides the bedroll and the tents.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls out a book. This book looks gilded in the typical gold of Laodicea and has the emblem of the lion, but in the Laodicean style rather than the Tildorian style.
Yeah.
And he says, as he opens this up, so he opens to the first page, and as you do, you feel a wind blow, like he's changing the atmosphere with each turning of the page, which is only one. But he says to you, so Chimera Gisneros, Hierophant Chimera Gisneros, came directly to you in a land so very far from her own, and told you to travel halfway across Galarian to find answers. That still puzzles me, but intrigues me at the same time.
Puzzles and intrigues me as well. I didn't even know of her identity at the time. I simply thought that she was the sister of Saladin.
Saladin. He kind of like bent his head down. A warrior to the death, and a good man, though a bit brash at times, if I do say so myself. He kind of chuckles as memories kind of flood his mind a bit. Since we're out here in the open, I guess I will regale you a bit. The truth is, Salahuddin Gisneros was a member of the Mendavian Crusade in the north, and though they would not admit it and would likely exile many of those. He was more than just a lover to the sword of Ayamade, which now takes place there. He died very much knowing what he was about to get into. He loved this land and at the same time cursed it for existing. For the moment Laodicia came into being, it spelled the end of his own life. And if I were in his position, I do not know what I would have done. He looks about you. I'm sure you've seen his eyes.
Yes. Those eyes seem very familiar to me now.
Mm. But yet, you do not see those eyes when you saw Miss Chimeria.
I did not.
Exactly. He like takes a deep breath, a deep sigh like this, and looks up into the sky. I'm sure you've traveled with Lord Hardlock.
I did.
And I bet you saw in those eyes as well, or at least half of that.
Yes,
And
his
then,
one eye.
indeed, and you've seen our prestigious queen. Have you not? He kind of chuckles a bit at that.
From a distance, I have.
But you beheld the same eyes, did you not?
I did.
Let's see. What did you make of those? Do you think it's like a natural occurrence?
No. They're connected. They have to be.
In what way?
I'm not sure. It seems as though everybody that I've seen with those eyes are at least somewhat familiar with each other. So perhaps some event happened that caused their eyes to change.
He kind of chuckles a bit. My friend, I know you are a believer in the sword of Ayamade. Are you not? You believe in the deeds and the things which she has made, and you believe in her predecessor. Do you not?
Yes.
You feel a warmth in the air as he turns to the page again, but you feel as though he's burrowing into like your moral core, like he's discerning lines here and there.
Yeah.
And he says to you, what do you know of Eridan himself?
I know of the stories that were passed down.
That he was a man, the last Aslanti to survive, a great boon in the destruction of the Whispering Tyrant, which you and your past knights so carefully took care of at Gallowspire, correct?
Yes.
And yet at the very end, you know that suddenly, on his return back to Galarian, the land had changed, and the great eye of Abedego suddenly appeared, correct?
That is correct.
And it is believed that now the lady, you kind of surmised that where he was going without needing to tell you exactly who. He's talking about Pharasma.
Yeah.
If you just in case,
Yeah.
Just making sure. So
Yeah.
be like, and so the lady now does not have the power, or so it's believed. The prophecies are all doomed, and that none of them are quite certain.
He looks down at the cup and has like a pensive kind of like sad nostalgia kind of expression on his face at that statement.
He continues on as you look down, And he and that is to believe that anyone who could see prophecies are maddened and go crazy. And so it is impossible to believe any sort of soothsaying, correct?
That is what many say these days.
Well, what if I was to tell you why the reason would it be blasphemous to speak it underneath the oath of your once beloved God?
Do you claim to know what happened?
Hmm. I do not claim to know, but I seem to be able to put the pieces together, at least for the time being. There's something missing, though, and I have devoted my time as Ward Marshal to allocate my resources to find out exactly why. It is one of the biggest mysteries of our time, and yet I feel as though we are here in the land which all of that could be solved as to why Erden did not come back. And I know it seems out of place, but it feels as though here in his once beloved land of Teldor, or should I say Lodicea, that mystery could be solved. But I will not stall you any longer. The individuals who behold those eyes are part of, forgive me, he kind of mutters something in his underneath his breath. He says, are part of a group which we have aptly named Fate Touched.
Everyone with the eyes.
Indeed, they have been occurring since 70 years ago, if I do remember correctly, the first sighting of them. Salahadin Gisneros was one amongst the first. So was Strix Valentine. So was Lucia. So was so many who were very close to the Emperor himself. Do you understand what fate touch means?
I can't say that I do.
He looks at you and kind of like was hoping that you kind of would put the the pieces together in your own way, and he says, "Fate, those touch to see something through, to follow through to some point, should I say, to see a future with their own eyes. They are able to see many, or should I say, outcomes of certain things. But yet, to see the future, wouldn't that make one go mad?
I'm sure it would.
As the many stories have led us to believe. But yet, these individuals, though they might not express it outright, they can see many facets of futures. They can see points into where their being will change, and they must make a certain decision which will heavily weigh on the world. But to say that would be blasphemy, would it not? For the leaving of Erden would have caused. The leaving of Erden would have foregoed prophecy, would it not? In the name of Lady Pharasma, as my friend, as Lady Annika says, no one may hold prophecies, but even now she believes that my reasoning is true. So where does that put Lodicea as a nation full of individuals who can see the future?
It must not be a good omen.
I think you're misunderstanding. But go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. He kind of looks at the fire. He says, "It must not be a good omen if the king and those around him can see the future. For if he's amassing an army as large as Lotus has, then he must see something coming."
May I be fair with you and honest? I have never met the Emperor, though I have been given a title by him and by the Queen, which I have met many times, and she is a very good friend of mine. But I have never seen the Emperor. Never have I spoken to him or have even seen him come near. I've never been within proxy. But yet so many people speak his name to the land as though he were there, always. People in far off lands speak his name, but yet they're all different. They're never the same. Yet they call him the Emperor of Laodicea. And yet I give my life devotion to the land which I walk, not because the Emperor has given me, but because of the wishes of my father and those around which I wish to protect. But my heart, it longs to know exactly who the Emperor is. I must say, I am a bit jealous of Galvos, for he has seen the Emperor and knows him personally. I feel as though this is why he far, far outweighs me when it comes to matters of martial or raw power, should I say. He kind of looks with a smirk when he says that, kind of to diffuse the tense um, feeling he that was conveying through his words.
I too would be very interested in meeting the Emperor someday to see what it is he's aiming for, see what he sees.
Like I said, like my previous statement, my friend, I hope that the Emperor, in his infinite wisdom and his incredible power, from what I've understood, brings Lotus, this land which he has claimed as his own without war, to a prosperous state. Lest only chaos and destruction flow will come from this. I've seen this before, not in any sort of soothsaying or anything that of that nature, no magical, but just in the annals of history. A powerful being comes to be mysterious, and then from out of nowhere, 600 years of slavery and tyrannism. I mean, 6 centuries of tyrannism begin. I hope this beautiful land does not fall to that depraved soul.
Um, Kale takes a sip from his cup and looks about the, I'm assuming, very chilly land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he says, "So, what do you make of some of the recent events that have been coming from the west?"
Or from the intel which I have gathered, it does not bode well. There are many strings which haven't quite found a point to attach themselves to. For instance, Vasilia and Chelix. If the orc horde decides to make their way there in the masses, they would circumvent Last Wall, and then it would give them an easy way to come through all of the northern kingdoms. And from what I've understood from Lady Chimeria, The fall of Saladin Cisneros weighs heavily on the morale of the Mandavian Crusade, which then that would be another problem to deal with. A northern incursion of demons, devils, whatever they may come through, that would be bad. Such is the reasoning why Brevoy was allied with us. Hopefully more nations will join. We have members from the Greylands. Do you know what I speak of?
Members from the Greylands. This is the first that I've heard of that.
They call themselves the Mammoth Lords. They carry very large pachyderms, elephants of sorts, with tusks, and they're masters at them. But I fear that their land will be overrun as well, and a mass migration from them would then cripple other nations as well. Ustalav weighs heavy on my mind as well, for if the Orc horde passes through, it will definitely make their way. And I don't think the army, which currently resides in Ustalav, could possibly withstand such a mighty front. If my hunch is to be correct, I feel as though the Chalexian Empire, rather than to fight the Orc hordes, were allied with them. Probably subjugate them in some strange way, leaving nothing but a scar upon the land. Sadly, I feel as though Thuvia might join them as well. All this, all aimed to Laodicea.
We must do something about the morale of the Mandavian Crusade.
This is why the lady has traveled up there. Our friend Chimeria is a very close friend of the Sword of Iamade. They have known each other for quite some time. She is hoping to have a funeral there for Saladin. For though he may have been Capetian at birth and Odyssean by honor, his heart belongs in Bendev. Now, this is where I begin my statements about what the Emperor is trying to do. The land just seems too agitated. Too many things are moving at one given time, which then must give way to some kind of contraption to operate, to move forward. That contraption is some event. Something is going to happen. I do not know when or where, but I feel it. I feel as though the goddess Surrender herself is telling me that the sun will shine very dim soon. And that does not bring me comfort.
I have no doubt myself that something is foreboding. I just do not know from where. Is it the Orc horde that comes from the west? This Aurorus that, from what I hear, seeks to revive the Whispering Tyrant? Or perhaps Triana, with the sword that she's stolen? What great powers can be brought from that?
This is why I feel as though too many pieces have been moving at sorry, I can't think of the word. At the same time. Sorry, I can't think. Too many pieces are moving at the same time. I was trying to think of a fancier word. And as he kind of looks about, he looks up in the stars, and you kind of see, you're in the desert, so you can see very much anything. You can see a beautiful sky. Takes a heavy sigh. What is to become of Hilarion? What is to become of the world? The inner kingdom, the eastern kingdom, and the lands below. What good will happen with this many shifting powers? Who will stand by our side? Who will indeed come to our aid if we were to fall? So many unanswered questions. And he looks back down at you. But my strength lies within me, my faith, and I believe in those around me. I have been taught that by Lord Bolvus Faywin to never doubt the ones around you, lest those, lest when they fall. I mean, sorry. Do not those, do not doubt those around you, for they are your sword and your shield. And with that in mind, I go forth, protecting and knowing that though, even in my onset of death, Laodicea and those around me shall prevail.
Spoken like a man of Iomade.
Or a man who have seen enough war to not want it to come to this doorsteps. So what about you? Do you return? Do you plan on returning back to Last Wall?
I would not have made it this far if I ever planned on looking back.
But it was your home for such a long time.
It was. And I've learned a great many things from it. But there's a time when the bird must leave the nest and learn how to fly.
Would you say that about your constituents, those who've traveled so very far with you?
I do not know what they seek, but I feel like they are in a better place now than they were before.
He nods in agreement. Oh, this is beautiful. Though scarred from years of battle, but what land isn't? I believe that this will be, if time permits, and the annals of history remembers us, be a place of magnificent grandeur for those to read about in the textbooks. And I believe your friends hold something in them, the possibility to become greater here, as all of us have become. The land is fertile and allows for everyone to grow. So it's the words of the the Shelanian court. Shaylin, how would you say that? Shaylinian?
I think it would be Shailene, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys kind of carried no, never mind. We won't repeat this. He kind of pauses a bit and says to you, so, is it hard for you to see?
He gets like taking out of what he was staring at and says, I'm sorry.
I can tell. Your eyes are very close to my lens. It must mean you're either blind, 100%, or partially. They're very milky, white.
Yes, I have a lot of difficulty seeing anything further than a few yalms. About 60 feet, I can see fairly well. I could read a book easily at arm's length. But as far as what's up there, and he looks up to the sky, all I see is a blur of very dark gray.
He says, I will not take pity, for I know you have overcome this. But I must say, I am a bit saddened that you cannot sit here and enjoy this beautiful desert sky with me.
I'm sure that were I a man of Desna, this would be a great hindrance.
Perhaps. Or maybe if you were a man of Pharasma and could endure the punishment, in your next life, you will reap greater rewards than anyone else. Chuckles.
Yes, well, stubborn men of Iamade need only see as far as the length of their sword.
Spoken like a man from last one. He kind of thinks back on Tiberian. He says, well, what does that put you with the ladies? I'm sure you've had many.
He takes a moment before he replies back, and he says, there's not many ladies that you will find in Lastwall.
Excuse me. So you mean that all of everyone's manhood is shared upon each other like some great cesspool? He kind of like says it like with like a but still laughing like.
Hey, at that, Kale gets kind of a smirk and he says, "No, you misinterpret what I mean. I simply mean that there are other things to busy the mind."
Really now? Nothing better than the embrace of a woman you love, is it not?
From what I hear.
But you will not take one. Is it your duty as a knight? Do you believe them to be something of a hindrance? Or just you're afraid? And be honest. We're out here in the sands. I feel like every man I've spoken to has somehow taken an oath of celibacy. An oath of celibacy here.
Kale kind of leans back and he says, "Well, no oath have I taken. I simply haven't had the time or the will to search. At Lastwall, I devoted myself entirely to everything that we did. I did everything as by the book as I could and gave 100% of my time, if not on the front lines, then studying, reading the histories of Lastwall, reading some of the older oaths that the knights would take."
But do you believe that the man who wrote those oaths was so pure indeed that they would not have ever touched another?
I'm sure they've touched many. It has nothing to do with purity.
But come on. He kind of leans back a bit. And that like cocky ass, like, come on, man. Like, you would not take, the land is fertile. And there's room to grow. He chuckles as he unrolls his bedroll. Maybe you should ponder that. What was to happen if we were to defeat all the threats? Where would Lord Calvaralis find himself in that beautiful land?
Kale gets a little bit of a smirk on his face. He says, "I hear that Hector's place is very nice."
He looks about and says, "Oh, my dear friend Hector, that man knows how to make a good coin. Do you know that we skip to the next day?"
Really?
Yep. Oh man, I'm gonna hold that. That's like a really cool thing I want to tell you guys later on.
Okay.
The next morning, he calls forth in that ritualistic manner, which involves pulling out an idol of Iamade and holding it close to his chest, and then he whistles out, which seems to be like Gandalf whistling for freaking the damn horse. I can't remember. Shadowfax. I think it's,
Oh yeah, Shadowfax. Yeah.
yeah. He's just pretty much, and with thunder and lightning in tow, The sun seems to be very close to the land, and his beautiful horse, his Slipney Karkovo, comes and stomps in all his majesty. Ah, hello, my friend. Did you rest well? As he says to it, as he rubs its quite large head. The other horse, your horse, gives a customary bow, and Karkovo bows back again.
Kale will rub it on its forehead, but he takes no closer action towards it.
Does he rub Karkovo on the head? Does he rub Karkovo?
Yeah.
Okay. Karkovo doesn't he looks at you. You feel as though his eyes are looking into you, and though there's a calming feeling when you touch, it's his mane and everything just very well together. And as you touch him, you feel like a wellspring of rejuvenation in your hands, if there is a way to feel that. And he says, Karkovo, do you remember Lord Kelverelis, the pure one? And he does his and shakes his head, and he's like, yes, indeed, the pure one.
Kale's got a kind of, oh, not this again kind of look on his face.
And he says to you as he climbs aboard, Karkovo says, we ride a day's ride non-stop to Omash. There we shall meet with my father and a group of close friends, which I wish to introduce you to. And as he climbs about, he says, if you need to eat or anything, make sure to eat the provisions in the right pockets of your horse. They should keep you satisfied and fed until we get there. But until then, we ride headlong.
Aye.
He, with one good pull in the reins, he rushes through. You start realizing that very soon, though, the land starts becoming desert. But you do not feel any kind of discomfort, and you do follow his instructions and eat the food, eat the rations on the right pocket, and you feel full. And you feel alert as well. You feel as though you can ride for another couple of days without any problems, actually. And it doesn't taste very well. It's a type of bread, and meat, but it doesn't taste all that good. But you feel as though if you had this in better circumstances, they probably would have definitely tasted a lot better.
Reminds me of that muck that littlings eat.
You ride long and hard through the night until the next day. You ride through dunes, and you one of the major things that he points out that he gives you, and for you to keep as well, is a pair of goggles. They allow you to see in the night through storm and dust without any hindrance.
I see.
And as you ride through, he
only had a pencil.
Yeah. You arrived at Omash, a beautiful city. Could not compete with Rhodesia, obviously, but this city was once clearly in the possession of Cadrea, and it sits among the border of both ancient Teldor, and Cadrea. This used to be possibly the line where the line was drawn between both nations before one pounced on the other. For do you see, the moment you hit the land, there is a vast number of Grey Knights of the Tenchirian all about. Like a vast number. More than you have seen in Rhodesia. Um, Also, you have been accustomed to the mismatch armor regality of the Grey Knights. It's not because they don't have the same color in their armor. It's just in the Knights of Ozone, um, wearing white drapery, and despite the level of armor which you have, it still announces you as a member of the Knights of Ozone. You carry the colors. So, but yeah, this seems like a really mixed match. Group of individual like this army, um, that all seem to have a mixture of Qadrian attire, of Middle Eastern attire, and medieval attire here and there, like very well mixed. Um, and As you come through the city is not tiered as per se like this is, or how the other city is, but instead is one like large singular level city with very scarce water flowing through. For there is a river that you must traverse over a bridge flowing through. But this river does not look like it could possibly feed this huge city and all these individuals. As you start hitting inside, you start realizing there is an 8-foot, there is a 11-foot wall of stone which surrounds the border of the city through the outside. But before there's some farmland and very, very, very scarce amounts of greenery anywhere. And if that, it's mostly cacti and desert flowers and that nature. The sun is shining brightly. It's burning, and it's but due to the glasses you're wearing, hopefully, the glare from the sand isn't like destroying your corneas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you do, hopefully a mic. I don't know if you have the YouTube app open. I'm gonna try to play some.
I do.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ooh, too loud. Hold on one second. Why can I not? Okay. Try to turn it down a bit for me. Okay. All right. You hear, boss? You're muted, by the way, if you're saying something.
I always forget about that.
Yeah. No problem. And you hear the anvils of blacksmiths and masons ring throughout the city all around. But the main thing that captures your attention is a 4-story building, which seems to be the main encompassing center of the city. This, it has your usual buildings for taverns, but most of these are built out of stone, as a like sand and stone, rather than that post like the marbling, which is all of Lodicea pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It has that very desert feel to it. The winds blow pretty heavily. Until you start getting to a marketplace where this four-story building, there's more buildings throughout the back, but this 4-story building, you pass through the gates, and immediately the guards, which are all in the style of, rather than, the Lodician fully armored, they're like in more desert style clothing, and they're holding glaives, and they let you through. And inside, you can immediately tell from the get-go that this is a villa, for there is a huge water fountain in the middle, and there are women all around. There are women all around, and there seem to be a gathering water for men, and there seem to be children hanging about the balconies of this villa. And you see that there is a man dressed in Lodician attire, meaning that he's wearing chainmail and stuff like that, and he's bald. By the way, there are some. I want to describe this a little bit. There are hanging cloths which kind of shield you from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But they are like all different colors, like purple, orange, and green, and all those kind of colors. But they seem to be instead of like for like adding design. They're more for, I think they're just drying their clothing or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But the sun, you know, the sun shines through it, and you know, it makes this kind of beautiful image on the ground, colorful image. And this man is bald, is followed by two other people, and he says to you, he says, well, he addresses Lord Maximoff. We were not expecting you. And he says, of course, you're never expecting me. How are you, Hanser? He says, I am doing well. Your father would love to see you. Tell my father I'm here, but I will see him quite enough. For now, we're right into the night, and I'm quite sure that me and my friend here, he kind of looks back, do I like to find some rest? And he says at once, he looks at the two men in the back, and he says, he like looks at them with a nod, and they immediately scurry off. And he gets off of Carcavo. All the women are like hiding in the corner, but some of them are like, you know, oh my God, it's true, you know. And children are coming up to Carcavo. Now, most of the time, you would imagine that this creature would easily just decimate all these children. It just seems very bizarre for this creature with like stout muscles enough to crush boulders to be so calm around the presence of all these children who just seem to be like playing, like just petting it. And eventually he just kind of like with a slump, he just goes on all fours, bends him down, and just lays down. And your other horse, after you get off of it, does the same.
Okay. Yeah, he'll dismount as soon as Raul does.
He looks, says, welcome to my home. This is Omash. And this is the villa of Lord Mercio Maximoff, my father.
Mercio?
Mercio. And he says to you, I know it is nothing like Lodician, but it is where my family first began to, let's say, begin the genes. And it has been in our family for quite some time. Lady Chimera was gracious enough to give it back to us.
Kale kind of stares about the cloths that are hanging overhead, kind of fascinated by them.
Behind you, a contingent of horses, beautiful horses. I mean, they look like your horse, but these horses are just like, whoa. Like Carcavo is obviously stands above them all because he's a magical creature. But these horses just look like they have been taken care of better than most people take care of themselves. Their manes are so immaculate, like to the point where it's like, is this literally like a horse or a porcelain doll? It's breathtaking. Yeah. They all have they're like Appaloosa style. They're not like one solid color like stallions or anything like that. But the fact that they are like that, like brown mixing white and or black dots and here and there, makes their regality, which they have on like their necks and stuff like that, seem all the more pronounced, as opposed to the quite typical black styling, And amongst there's three individuals, and he a woman dressed in clothes, dressed in a red I do not remember the exact name of this, and forgive me. She like she's dressed in like Arabian style, doesn't cover her face, so all you can see is her eyes kind of do. I forgot the expertise name. And two individuals behind are wearing the exact same thing, but you can clearly, or at least you're hoping this is a woman, because her eyes are a piercing, too many images for me, blue. And they seem to be heavily make-upped in the style of Arabia. Sorry. I'm sorry. I just feel like I need to explain things. And she says, well, I wasn't expecting to see you anytime soon. And he's like, Raul turns around to behold him. And he says, well, I didn't know you were still here. And she's like, where would you expect me to be? Back in Odysseus on your comfy throne? And she's like, no, I'd rather stay here. I like coming back to the battlefield. I like coming back from the battlefield here rather than a nice warm hearth in a damp and dreary. She kind of pauses right there. Church of Serenre. And he's like, you call the greatest monolith to the goddess Serenre a damp, dreary church? Well, I need to see the standards in which you hold your own covenant. And she proceeds to take off the horse, get off the horse, and she hands it to one of the many children, which is standing by, who runs from Carcavel by there, and the two behind her follow through the deserty. It's kind of dusty in the ground, but it's still like paved. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, with the sound of water in the background flushing, you know, because it's water fountain. You know, she steps to you and then she says, "So you're the one that have been talking about."
He kind of looks around and for a moment and like, oh, is she talking about me?
Yes, I am talking about you.
Oh, my name is Kel Varelis.
I know who you are. It's a pleasure to meet you. She extends her hand, and you didn't see her like hands until now. As she kind of passes through the cloth, and you can see it's armored. It's wearing ampulets. I think. Oh shit, I forgot the actual name. Sorry, not greaves. I think it's ampulets, gauntlets, whatever.
Yeah,
it's armored, and she extends a hand.
Kale will extend his hand to meet it.
She like shakes it, very. What's the good word? She just shakes it. She just shakes it, and she looks at you, like in your eyes, like deep, and she said, "You're from Enderin, are you not?"
I am.
Which god do you follow?
I follow Iamade.
Well, do you know all of her deeds? Can you recite them by memory?
Why, yes, I can. Give me a second, because I personally can't, but he totally would.
All right. Find it real quick as I go take care of business real quick. Right back. Bathroom, nigga. What's up, though? Hello? So what's up? What the fuck's... Damn. What is he doing? Mike, you there? Oh, this man.
This has been a production of.
Pretty much. All right, go ahead, though.
Now, did she ask him for her acts or her affirmations?
For acts.
Her acts. Okay.
And you better say this good.
I better say this good. Okay. Kale kind of like stiffens up a bit and gets kind of at like a soldiery kind of stance, because it's kind of like a Pavlovian response for him to uh, recite these in this way. And he says, the first act of Iomade is when she cut the when God damn it. When she slew, God damn it.
I'm sorry, man.
Nakoshormund, releasing releasing her men from the beast's stomach. Her second act, she defeated a coven of witches in the Sargavan city of Elador, freeing the city from their tyranny. Her third act, from the back of a flying griffin, she hewed Sir Guchin the Iron Gargoyle's wings from his body, sending him plummeting to the ground, where she slew him in his crater before he could escape. In her fourth act, she called upon Arasni. Oh wait, I'm sorry. In her fourth act, she convinced a regiment of mortally wounded knights at the second battle of Incarthen to slay the ground against a horde of wraiths until reinforcements arrived at the dawn to rescue them. In her fifth act, she smote Aram Hell at the Battle of Three Sorrows, forcing the crippled Lord of the Morgues into hiding in the depths of Orv. Her sixth act, Iomade instantly reforged her sword, fusing it together with a prayer and an oath to end the Whispering Tyrant. Her seventh act was calling the undying light in Absalom, which is commemorated at the Seventh Church. God damn it. The format of this confused me for a second. Her seventh act, which she called for the Starstone to light the city of Absalom. Starstone Cathedral glowed with blue fire in the star-shone rays of light that targeted the ghouls that were attacking and allowed her and the city's defenders to destroy them. Her eighth act was convincing the Black Prince to throw himself upon his sword as punishment for his evil, allowing him to be judged in the halls of Eredin. The ninth act is when she gave 9 drops of her own blood to the vampire mage Basilov. When Basilov attempted to recapture her righteous knights, she and the knights slew him. Her 10th act, Iomade ruled the city of Cantarina, in the absence of its rightful lord, the Eris patriarch of House Narcopolos. She ruled over the city for a year and a day, while its lord bringing prosperity to the city despite constant attacks by shape-changing horrors, which she battled personally. And her 11th act was when she cast her cloak before her in the pit of the Starstone in Absalom. Her cloak straightened.
The position which she now holds as God. She nods and finishes, and she finishes the statement for you as you go again. She's like, she nods her head to the side, and she said, "It does me well to see another member so far to be able to truly remember the acts word by word in her tone." And Raoul says, "If I might be so bold as to break this little session and introduce the beautiful voice behind the veil. This is Lady, or excuse me, this is Sword Saint Idra, as she goes by now. And would you remove this so the men can see your beautiful porcelain face? And as you can tell, this is a very different Raul.
Yeah.
He seems more at home than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, and she kind of like, he chuckles at the end of that statement, and she does, and as she does, it comes off, and she turns it into a cape on it, and she looks, oh man, we have a viewer, and she looks like so. Screen share. Do you see?
Oh hell! The visage of Iamade herself.
The visage of Amade herself. Very, very much so. How does Kale Veralis react to this?
He has a very nervous look on his face.
And she catches it and she says, "What?"
I did not expect Iamade herself to be present here. He says in kind of a trying to diffuse his own nervousness with a joke.
Yeah, Raul is like cracking up back there. And he's just like, oh God. And he steps next to her. She's like, this is my sister. This is my sister, Idra Maximov.
Kale bows and says, "It's an honor to meet you."
Hey, she laughs. She says, I hope it is not blasphemous to try to have your hair in the same style as the goddess which we pray. I do find it quite fashionable.
The last of her affirmations is to strive to emulate her perfection.
The girls behind her chuckle. Everyone has their eyes on you like, is this man melting underneath?
He definitely has a kind of starstruck look upon his face that he tries very hard. In fact, it looks a little bit more like he's struggling too hard to hide his starstruck expression, that it's making it worse.
He says, Raul's like, he comes about and lets his hair down a bit. It's like they're like almost the same height. Mm-hmm. But he's like a tiny bit taller than her. And he's like, he lets his hair down. He's like, don't we look alike? And as you kind of like start noticing, they don't. Not at all. And like after they say that to diffuse your very obvious embarrassment, she like goes and gives her a hug. And they embrace, like, I've missed you very much, sister. I know you've been quite bored here. I'm pretty sure Lord Galvez would not mind having you back amongst his men. And she says, I will never return back to that filth what he calls a group of barbaric, militant, jar-headed individuals. He calls the Blackguard. Or should we call him by their proper name? He's like, no need. And you will address him by his title. He has earned it as much. And without that, like with like that hint of like stepping boundaries here, she kind of backs up. And he says, inside, he motions you into a very, very cozy parlor. As you can notice, like this house is big. It's a villa, and there's many rooms, but it doesn't seem opulent. It seems right for the area. You know, it doesn't seem like it's just like a show of wealth. It's more like it could easily be like a community home as opposed to something of like grandstanding. Mm-hmm. You find yourselves in a dining hall short after they start speaking in the native Carpathian tongue, kinda. And as you get inside, you see they have a coat of arms upon a warm hearth or an empty hearth, and it sits upon there. And this coat of arms obviously holds the emblem of the lion among itself. Holds a sword in one corner, and then on both sides it's one like a flowing river, right? And one corner of it is a closed fisted hand, no, like three closed fisted hands showing like facing with the thumb outwards rather than like showing the back of the hand. Um, and all this the actual pictures within the squares are gilded in blue and gold. It looks like it's made out of sapphire almost. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but this thing is massive. It's like it's it's opulent for its heraldry, but it sits upon diagonally facing downwards upon the table, which Raoul takes a seat at the head, and at the head facing it, having his back to it, and motions you to sit on his right, and his sister sits across from you. And he says, "What are the dealings here? I've heard this. I've heard that father had an attempt on his life." He said, um, she kind of chuckled, is rather, I feel quite bad for the individuals who tried. Uh, Annika came here, and he looked down and he's just like, "Was anyone killed?" She nods and yes. "How many?" She holds up 6 fingers and is like, "How many walls were taken down?" She says, the two with a motion of her hand, pointing to 2. She says, "How much is the rebuilding going to cost?" He just like nods all this without saying anything. But did we get to the bottom of this? She said, "It seems an old regiment has been moving about through Laodicea still." And he cocks his head to the side. He cocks his head to the side, like wondering who. Oh wait, you weren't listening in the pub, were you?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. It would have been another player who could fill in the blanks there. She says, "Old regiment of old Teldor. Does the Teldorian lion blade hold any meaning to you, brother?" And he says, "Oh," kind of sits back on the chair, which is more fashioned like a throne rather than anything else. And he cocks his head. "So the Teldorian lion blade is still about. Does that mean that?" She kind of cocks back. "No, brother. Red mantises have not been seen throughout the land, nor will they be coming. From what I understood, or from legends I've understood about the forming of Laodicea, I'm sure they have been all wiped out, with a few exceptions. It's those few exceptions I worry about." He looks at you for a bit. As you see individual like housemaids who look like they're enjoying their job, bring in large platters of food, and goblets with wine, like pouring it at your side here and there. And he says, he motions with a thank you, and they bow down respectfully. Oh, by the way, he's not wearing his ridiculous armor right now. He's in a very relaxed state, and he says to you, "Do you often have spies amongst your members, Lord Lord Kell? Lord Veralis." Sorry.
You mean in the Knights of Ozum?
Yes.
There have been some, but Commander, I think it's Commander, right? Commander Anbog?
High Marshal.
High Marshal Anbog is always quick to snub out such threats.
And how exactly does she deal with them? Execution, jailery, exile?
Execution. It is the highest dishonor to betray your brethren in the Knights of Oath.
She looks. Either looks at you like, yeah, that's. I agree with Denbog. And he looks about and says, "Oh no, she stops and asks the all important question. As you know, that there's a small 3 to 4 second, 5 second pause, and she asks, brother, though I'm glad to see a hero from Sandpoint here, why exactly did you bring him here?" He says, he leans back and is like, yes, the lady Camelia said something upon him. And now that I have spent some time with him, I've come to understand exactly what she means. And he's like, she sits back, he's starts speaking in
Catapation.
Catapation, but he like puts his hand up to the motion. It's like, there is no need. We may speak freely amongst them. He holds no secrets and is willing to divulge anything that he wishes to tell us. He was there when Salahadin Gisneros fell, though I doubted that he was there when he saw the blade come down upon him. But at least he made an attempt to go save him, am I to believe. Which brings me to another question which has been pondering me for some time. What did happen when Salahadin Gisneros fell?
He kind of looks down at the table and says, "Truth be told, that question might be better answered by my compatriot Margot Steelwind, who has now joined the Black Guard."
She gives a resounding sigh, like, really?
See, Salahadin had met with us, and we had planned to meet up in a fort. I don't remember. I personally don't remember the name of the fort, but
Avon Keep.
Avon Keep, yeah, at the Avon Keep, northwest of Sandpoint. When we arrived, we were attacked, but we went up to the spire and found his mask.
He lets that audible sigh, like, mask. And Idra looks about like his mask, like with a look on her face of shock, like his mask. Like when you say that, Continue.
My good friend Margos, put on the mask and saw a vision of what we assume were his last moments, of a great battlefield, a crow-looking man, and a great light.
Soldier, he says underneath his breath. You hear it, by the way. You hear him just a soldier.
Yeah, soldier. He Kale kind of glances over at him when he says that, and he continues. We had been overwhelmed by what we had faced at that tower. A giant metal bird came and attacked us.
It was one of our own. But it's a contraption which we used to guard one of our very, how should I say, well-guarded locations which do not reside in Lodicia. Sadly, it was taken from us by a soldier, the damn crow.
I personally do not know if what we saw on the mask was his last moments or premonition, For we also saw a great light, but it came later.
Hmm. Now, did you manage to break all the way through my? I'm quite puzzled. You did not manage to save Salahuddin Gisnerd, but I've heard that you managed to save a great deal of people. But how did four individuals manage to do all that? By no means, I'm sorry, I do not wish to downplay your heroics, but quite intrigued, says Idra.
It's quite all right. If anything, that's a show of wisdom. For we didn't do it ourselves. We did have help. We met a man named Jashta on our way there, and he helped us to find our way to the cathedral that we found all of the people in, and helped to carry many of them back to Sandpoint as well.
Yeah, he looks about and kind of like he's trying to like remember through his memories, like why has he heard that name before?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "This Lord Jashta, who was he? If you could refresh my memory."
He was a very interesting man. He felt very he described himself as a king to a hidden forest. He his compatriots that helped us were dryads of the forest.
King of a. He kind of like sits back and he. By. Oh no! He sits back and suddenly he remembers. He remembers that he shouldn't have left Laodicea. He should have stayed put. And everything just started to click in his mind like, wait a minute, that name is bringing up responsibilities. He suddenly remembered that a large contingent of Lord Josh's men had been sent on a worldwide spanning crusade to bring back highly important cargo to the land of Laodicea, and that his daughter is taking residence there along with the enormous Titan-like creature, which is now Tipa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all hitting him so hard, like, oh my. Forgive me, as he stands up and he puts, keeps his hand on the table. I must speak with my father. For now, either show him around the place and introduce him to those who you deem worthy. But I must speak with father once. And he like leaves in a rush. Like he's trying to walk with measured steps up, into the garden outside. Which, by the way, there's archways so you can see the garden outside. Which, compared to the rest of the city, greenery all over the place. And he heads off into another side of the villa. And this leaves you awkwardly with either.
Either as the only person here.
Mm-hmm.
Kale kind of looks back at her with a confused and worried expression. He says, "I hope I didn't say something that upset him."
He's always been like that. He forgets a lot, and then suddenly he remembers it, and then suddenly he feels the impulse to act upon it just at that time. Yeah. The only thing that saves him is his charismatic nature. And it's about, well, I'm sure you're tired, but if you wish to survey the town, I guess you are my responsibility until he comes back.
I'm never too tired to explore a new town.
By the way, she's been leaning back with her hands crossed and her legs not like crossed in a seductive way or anything like just kind of like the foot resting on top of the knee.
Hmm.
Even though she's wearing like full plate armor, like it looks like it shouldn't be able to do that, but she is.
She's very comfortable within the armor.
Yeah, very comfortable. And she looks about and says, "Well, I guess we should get a move on. I do have responsibilities, but either way, welcome to Amash. I hope you enjoy your stay. Next time on
On D&D.